What's going on, everybody? Marvel Cross 316 back with another comic book flashback. Today we are looking at The Amazing Spider-Man issue number 79. This issue came out in December of 1969, and we left off on a bit of a cliffhanger last issue. We saw the first appearance of the Prowler, and as we look on the cover today, we have Peter Parker, and it looks like he has been shoved out the Daily Bugle window. So how is he going to survive this, and how is he going to save his secret identity without revealing his identity to the world, especially to Jameson, who might put two and two together and see how Peter Parker might be Spider-Man. And so we're going to pick up where we left off last issue, but before we get started, let's go ahead and give credit where credit is due. So this issue was written by Stan the Man Lee, who wrote this issue. We have Big John Buscema doing the artwork with Jim Man Mooney, and we also have Sam Rosen on the lettering page. So let's go ahead and continue the story here. We see here that Peter Parker has not been shoved, but actually he leapt out the window out of his own will so that he can find the time to change to Spider-Man. But according to Jameson and Joe Robertson, they think that the Prowler had shoved Peter Parker out of this window. So it looks like Peter Parker is going to have to come up with an excuse as to how he survived this predicament. So we see here that as Peter Parker is falling from the building, that he allows himself to skid across the building here using his spider powers here, and he lands on his feet. And so we go now back to the Prowler, and he thinks that he has murdered this kid, and he didn't plan this. And so here we see that Jameson and Joe Robertson here, they barge right into the room here, and Jameson accuses the Prowler of murder. But we see here that the Prowler is going to get out of the way, and all that we see here is that Jameson cares about money. He doesn't even care about whether Peter Parker survived the fall or not. All he's worried about is that the Prowler didn't take off with any of Jameson's money. But the big question in mind is, where is poor Parker? Where is Parker at? So we see here that we're going to catch up with the Prowler, and this is the first fight between Spider-Man and the Prowler. As the Prowler puts up his own against Spider-Man here. And I mean, the Prowler, even though he is a kid, even though he's about probably 18 years old, he fights like a veteran here. And he has all of these gadgets and weaponry here that he's going to use against Spider-Man. And one thing he uses in particular is these gas pellets here. And that is definitely going to come to his advantage here as Spider-Man and the Prowler are fighting up on this rooftop. As I continue to show you right here, this is exactly where the Prowler catches Spider-Man off guard here as he shoots off some of this gas that comes from his boot, because we see here that he wasn't able to do it from his own wrist because his wrist had been pretty much slammed into this roof here, and it was stuck. His glove was stuck inside the roof, but he uses, as we see here, his boot to his advantage as this gas shoots out from it, causing Spider-Man to be distracted. Spider-Man was not able to hold his breath in time, allowing the Prowler to escape here. And we see here that now that the Prowler has escaped, now Spider-Man is going to think back to last issue. And we remember last issue that Gwen Stacy and Flash Thompson had met together in a coffee shop, and Peter Parker saw them as he was walking down the street. But as we know for sure that Flash Thompson and Gwen Stacy are not seeing each other, but that Gwen Stacy just wants to get some information out of Flash Thompson because she is interested in Peter Parker and why he continues to sneak off and be mysterious. So that's the real deal that's going on here. But Peter Parker doesn't know that. So now we return back to the Daily Bugle. We see that Jameson and Joe Robertson are both concerned whether Peter Parker, their photographer, is alive or not. But all of a sudden, we hear that Peter Parker's voice. He's calling for Robbie and Mr. Jameson, and they are relieved to find that Peter Parker survived the fall from the window, and he uses the excuse that Spider-Man was nearby, and he snatched Peter Parker up just in time, and it looks like Robertson and Jameson bought into that story. So Peter Parker gets off the hook here. And now, as Peter Parker leaves here, he is going to pretty much return back to his apartment, and he just feels down in the dumps. And who wouldn't, after finding the girl that he loves cheating on another guy? But as we know, she is not cheating on Peter Parker. So now let's return back to the Prowler. He is making his way back to his own place, and all he can think about is Peter Parker diving out of that window. And now he's like, am I a murderer now? This is not what I planned. This entire time I've planned to become the Prowler to impress Mindy, his ex-girlfriend. But it seems that it's just not going as planned. But as we see later on, that Hobie Brown continues to think about it, and he's like, you know what, if I can catch Spider-Man in the act here, if I can give him to the cops, then I will get publicity, and Mindy will know that she messed up in dumping me. So now I see the next day, and we're at ESU, and Peter Parker is heading to class, and all of a sudden Gwen Stacy, she wants to talk to Peter Parker, but Parker does not want to even talk to her, and he gives her the cold shoulder, saying, why don't you share your thoughts with Flash Thompson? And so that's how he leaves the scenario here, not even giving Gwen Stacy the chance of explaining herself. But as we see here, as the day goes by and we get into the evening time, we see Peter Parker is at his apartment here, and he's just down in the dumps. He's like, why do I feel so bad after what I just did? And all of a sudden, as he's catching the news, we learn that the Prowler is on the loose, and Peter Parker's like, you know what? This will get my mind off Gwen right now, so why not go after the Prowler? So before he goes after the Prowler, we see here that he's going to use this mask gas filter that will allow him to escape the gas of the Prowler. So as Spider-Man is swinging on by, he's like, you know what? I need to get some photos as well. So before I can do that, I need to get some film. So he goes by the shop, sneaks inside, grabs some film, and even gives the money through this webbing here. And so now Spider-Man is able to take some photos of the Prowler and track down the Prowler with no problem. And he catches the Prowler in this diamond store here. And this is exactly what the Prowler wants, as the Prowler was trying to bait Spider-Man into going into this shop. And so right off the bat, the Prowler tries to use his gas again to cause Spider-Man to be defeated. But now Spider-Man is one step ahead of the Prowler, so the Prowler realizes that the gas is not going to work, so he tries to escape here, but Spider-Man catches him off guard using his webbing here, pulls him up, unmasks the Prowler, and realizes that it's just this kid. I mean, he's probably like 19 years old, and so we see that the Prowler has been defeated here, and Hobie Brown's like, you know what, it doesn't even matter, it doesn't make a difference anymore. Why don't you just go ahead and send me to the police? And we see here that Hobie Brown explains the entire story as to why he became the Prowler to Spider-Man. And we see here that Spider-Man is actually going to let Hobie Brown go. And he's like, look, I'm giving you a chance. Go back to Mindy. Work things out with her. And that is exactly how we end this issue. We ended off on a pretty somber note. I hope you liked it. And until next time, we will be looking at the return of the Chameleon. That's right, we haven't seen the Chameleon in quite some time. So I'm looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to reviewing that issue. So go ahead right now, click that like button and click that bell so you'll be notified next time when we come out with another video just like this. And until next time, keep reading comics.